All right, so the new face of Trump 2.0, the Musk moment in the Oval Office today, plus the JFK files and new FBI revelations. That is Topping the Hill on NewsNation tonight.
What?
Including a lot of Democrats.
I have detractors?
You do, sir.
I don't believe it.
The people voted for major government reform, and that's what people are going to get. They're going to get what they voted for.
All right, so the critics, converts, and those who cheer him on now have that moment right there. Elon Musk in the Oval Office next to President Trump as the president signs an executive order saying federal agencies need to back Doge. And the commander-in-chief today doubling back on a big vow abroad, alongside Jordan's leader, President Trump, vowing there will be hell to pay if Hamas doesn't release all the hostages by noon on Saturday, and repeating that Gaza is for the taking.
What money are you going to use to buy Gaza?
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace.
But tonight there is pushback. Egypt's president is now canceling his trip to the United States. Hello, good evening. Welcome to a snowy Washington. Would you look at that on this evening? I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. Tonight there is news well beyond the Oval Office. A live look right now, the United States Senate. As in hours, Tulsi Gabbard will receive her vote to become the Director of National Intelligence. 4 FEMA workers have also been fired after payments were made to house illegal immigrants in New York. And an American is on his way home after being held in Russia. But first tonight, here from the Hill are Brian Enton on the brand new revelations with the JFK files. Ali Bradley on how DHS is now turning to the IRS. We begin, though, with our Robert Sherman live at the White House, where Elon Musk held court in the Oval Office today. Robert?
Yeah, surprising here today, Blake, with Elon Musk and his son making an appearance inside of the Oval Office, addressing reporters effectively, it becoming a bit of a press conference himself in which Musk was given the green light by the president along with Doge in order to shrink the government in terms of total spending here. And Musk was asked rather point blank today if this was a takeover of the government, if this was an unelected bureaucracy that was taking the helms here in Washington. Well, this is what Musk had to say to those pointed questions from reporters. Take a listen.
We have a majority of the public voting for President Trump. We won the House, we won the Senate. The people voted for major government reform. We actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website.
Musk mentioning multiple agencies by name that they're looking into, including the Department of Treasury and USAID. President Trump giving his full backing to Musk. And when asked what he would do if a judge blocks any of these measures, he says he would abide by the judicial ruling, but appeal. Blake?
Robert Sherman, live tonight at the White House. Robert, thank you. Tonight, an American will return to U.S. soil and be reunited with his family. A top official posting this image right here of Mark Fogel, drink in hand, as you can see. The 66-year-old worked at a Moscow school for nearly a decade, but was detained by Russian authorities in 2021. The Trump administration says the exchange serves as a, quote, show of good faith from the Russians and a sign we are moving in the right direction, end quote, to end the war in Ukraine. The president also says Mark Fogel is expected to be at the White House later this evening. It comes, by the way, as Ukraine is about to receive 2 high-profile visitors. The president says the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, will soon meet with Vladimir Zelensky to try to end the war in Ukraine. Vice President J.D. Vance also expected to meet with Zelensky on Friday as well. Back here at home, the administration continues its illegal immigration crackdown, but could be facing some internal issues. The president's border czar, Tom Homan, believes leaks are coming, quote, from the inside. The recent ICE raid in Aurora, Colorado, now under investigation, as Homan believes a leak could have originated from within the FBI. Homan today, by the way, also did not hold back when asked about criticisms from Pope Francis, who said in a letter that the administration's policies will end badly.
Look at how this works for the Pope. Pope won't fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
And now the Department of Homeland Security wants to deputize IRS agents to help with deportation efforts. Our Allie Bradley joins us live once again from Del Rio, Texas, with the very latest this evening. Allie?
Yeah, hey, Blake. So just about every other three-letter agency is involved with these deportation efforts. So why not add IRS agents, right? So we can expect some of these individuals, if they are deputized, that they would be from the investigative arm of the IRS. Now, we know that DHS Secretary Kristi Noem actually reached out to the secretary on behalf of this move here, requesting that some IRS criminal investigators assist in tackling human trafficking networks and businesses that are employing undocumented workers. This isn't your typical office accountant either here, though. The IRS's Criminal Investigation Division, it comprises of up over 2,100 special agents. These agents are authorized to carry firearms on duty, make arrests under federal law, and execute search warrants. By deputizing them, they would actually gain that legal authority to investigate, arrest, and detain individuals suspected of violating federal immigration laws. Now, in this letter that Secretary Noem sent out, it says, quote, "It is DHS's understanding that the Department of Treasury has qualified law enforcement personnel available to assist with immigration enforcement, especially in light of recent increases to the International Revenue Service's workforce and budget." Now, the IRS could team up with ICE by going after human smugglers, helping with paperwork so that agents can focus on more arrests, right? Get the boots and the badges back out there, and cracking down on businesses that hire people who aren't authorized to work in the United States. A tall task indeed for these IRS agents if this deputization goes through, Blake. But of course, as you talked about there, ICE has a lot of hurdles that they're dealing with right now. President Trump behind closed doors saying he's not happy with the ICE arrest numbers. When you break it down on average, we're seeing about the same amount of people crossing the southern border as we are being arrested by ICE. So that's not really coming out in the wash for the American people. So those numbers are not what they want to see. Tom Homan says they're not what he wants to see either, Blake.
Our Allie Bradley, live tonight, Del Rio, Texas. Allie, thank you. So will we learn more than we thought? After President Trump signed an executive order declassifying files related to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, his brother Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the FBI now discovering thousands of previously undisclosed records connected to President Kennedy's assassination. Our Brian Enton live this evening with those new revelations. What's this all about, Brian?
Yeah, it's sort of crazy, Blake, that they are just now discovering thousands of documents. Remember, it's been just about 2.5 weeks since President Trump signed his executive order demanding that the classified records in the JFK assassination be released. And now this bombshell news that 2,400 newly discovered records have been found. When Trump signed the executive order, he said everything will be revealed. But when exactly that'll happen, what will be revealed, all of that is still a mystery. JFK, of course, was shot and killed in Dallas in 1963. Investigators determined communist activist Lee Harvey Oswald killed President Kennedy, but conspiracy theories about the assassination, they've continued to thrive over the decades. The FBI telling NewsNation today they found the 2,400 new records related to the JFK assassination case file, that they will now start the declassification process. You'll remember, Blake, Trump originally promised to release all the JFK records during his first term, but that effort was shut down after the CIA and the FBI raised concerns. But this time, Blake, it seems like it is actually going to happen.
This time. We'll see. Our Brian Enton live for us tonight. Brian, thank you. By the way, the search for answers doesn't end there. The House Oversight Committee announcing today a new UAP task force, otherwise known as UFOs, with the Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna leading the charge. The Congresswoman saying the first hearing is set for next month. march. All right, I want to give you a live look real quick on the Senate floor. We started the show saying tonight that the full Senate vote for Tulsi Gabbard would be happening tonight. That's what we thought. It was expected to take place at about 11 o'clock this evening, but you see screen left. We don't do a lot of things well here in Washington. One of them is deal with the snow, and it's coming down right now. And so we can now tell you that the vote for Tulsi Gabbard to be potentially the next Director of National Intelligence has been bumped to tomorrow, expected to happen now, tomorrow morning. All right, still to come here on the Hill this evening. President Trump warning all hell will break out. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying the ceasefire will be terminated if Hamas does not return the remaining hostages this weekend. So will those threats stand? And Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, kicks off his first trip overseas in Germany. The former press secretary over at the Pentagon, Sabrina Singh, the former White House chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, join me on the other side of the break. Hello, good evening. Welcome to Washington. We're a little cold tonight. Got a lot of snow. It still remains the center of politics. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation, and we're back in just 4 minutes.
Middleman. No restricted stock market hours. Choose the path of direct Bitcoin investment with iTrust Capital, because access equals opportunity. Invest in Bitcoin at itrustcapital.com today.
I had 8 UTIs in 1 year. This inspired me and my partner Spencer to launch Eucora. Eucora makes effective urinary tract health products.
It truly works miracles. The peace of mind I've been looking for.
Go to eucora.com to learn more.
Welcome to NewsNation, where left and right come to be reasonable.
He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but we were sent up here to represent our country.
NewsNation, news with respect for all Americans.
You know, I have a Saturday deadline, and I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are.
Another warning from President Trump today. The commander-in-chief reaffirming, quote, all hell will break loose if Hamas doesn't return the remaining Israeli hostages by 12 on Saturday. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also welcoming those demands, adding, quote, I instructed the IDF last night to amass forces inside and around the Gaza Strip. So what could that look like? Joining me now, Mick Mulvaney, NewsNation contributor, former Trump White House chief of staff, and Sabrina Singh, former deputy Pentagon press secretary in the Biden administration. Hello to you both. Nice to have you here.
Good to be here.
We're going to let Sabrina go first to save Mick's voice.
Hello, Berman.
Hello, Mick.
That's going to get better, I promise.
So 2 things here. This demand from the president on Saturday at noon, Sabrina, release the hostages or all hell breaks loose, and this idea that the U.S. is going to take over Gaza. I know 2 different concepts here, but where do you think this goes from here? Because everything with Trump is a negotiation at the starting point.
I think it's certainly important that the ceasefire deal that was negotiated weeks ago is upheld. So we do need to see Hamas release those hostages. We are seeing some hostages come home. We've seen them come home over the previous weeks. The hostages that are coming home, we're seeing the dire conditions that they were held in. So there's no question that Hamas needs to uphold this end of the deal.
Do you think they will?
Look, the ceasefire deal that's holding in Gaza right now, that's being held in Lebanon right now, it's all tenuous. It's all, it's day by day, hour by hour. Let's hope that this deal does continue and so that it can move into phase 2. But right now, we're seeing the rhetoric coming out of Israel, coming out of this White House. I think we need tensions to cool so that Hamas can continue they need to uphold their end of the bargain. I think on the second point that you're asking about.
What's Trump trying to do?
Yeah.
What's the president trying to do?
I think that remains to be seen. I don't understand what this administration's plan is for Gaza. How are you going to, quote, take over Gaza without U.S. military assistance? What, the people are just going to hand it over to you? I mean, this is not a real estate deal. And, I mean, the fact is we're talking about Panama, Greenland, now Gaza. I mean, truly, how is this the America First agenda? I'm not sure what this is getting the American people. I'm not sure how this is lowering gas prices or eggs.
Is this the America First agenda? And is there any appetite for this right now?
There's zero appetite for this.
Among Republicans.
I understand that Steve Witkoff went to the Senate lunch on Wednesday of last week and was told in no uncertain terms that the Republicans in the Senate are united. And they're very rarely united on anything. No troops, no money. They want to have nothing to do with Gaza.
So then what's the president doing here?
I have no idea. I've been scratching my head on this one from the very beginning. I recognize how the man negotiates. I know how he uses leverage and threats and all that, and I get that. But that only works if it's a credible threat. And right now, without money and without troops, there is no credibility here.
The Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, making his first overseas trip, was asked about one of the main topics that is being talked about in this town right now, Doge, and how it could potentially relate to the Pentagon. Watch.
I've been in touch with Elon Musk, who's a great patriot, interested in advancing the America First agenda, knows that President Trump got 77 million votes and a mandate from the American people, and part of that is bringing actual business-like efficiency to government, hence what Doge is doing. We've been talking to them in partnership with them, and as I said on social media, we welcome Doge to the Pentagon.
How many years were you there? Just there?
I was there almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
Yeah.
So if Doge goes in, and this is a budget of
almost $1 trillion.
Almost $1 trillion, right?
Yeah.
Like somewhere in the area of 900 billion. What are they going to find? That's a big number.
Look, I think it's fair to take a look at every single agency, including the Department of Defense, and say there can be cuts made. But you can't go in, and I know this administration came in on a mandate that they were going to break things, but you are breaking things that are going to be irreplaceable at some point. And, you know, what they're doing to USAID, if you do that to the Department of Defense, you are going to weaken our military. I mean, there are ways that you can cut costs. There are certainly
how are those ways? Because you're going to hear the argument of you're weakening the military, but we also, I see a $36 trillion national debt and climbing by the second.
Yeah, I mean, look, this administration is going to have to look at programs that they want to prioritize.
Okay.
If there are programs that they don't want to prioritize, or their modernization efforts that they want to undertake, you know, under the previous administration, we undertook an effort called the Replicator Initiative. If they look at some initiatives and they're like, you know, we want to make cuts on that, I think there are fair things to make cuts on and ways to modernize our military, giving the warfighter the advantage against a threat like China or other adversaries. But you can't just go in and do what they did at USAID.
What's a realistic number?
You know, I don't have a real
tens of trillions or tens of billions. I mean,
look, there are very smart people in that building, career, uniform, and civilians, that understand ways that they can cut costs. I hope the secretary and I hope Elon Musk listens to these folks. There are ways to do it, but you have to be smart about it.
What happens when Doge goes after the Pentagon with Republicans in this town? I can't imagine
It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
10% would be $90 billion.
So 5% would be 40 to 50.
There have been Republicans and Democrats alike asking the Pentagon, demanding the Pentagon conduct an audit for years. And the Pentagon has said, oh, we're sorry, we can't do it. We don't know how to do it. We're too big to do it. We're unauditable. They're about to get audited. Not in a formal kind of way, but that's what this is going to go through. They're absolutely going to find stuff. And this building over here is going to have some difficult decisions to make, because there are weapon systems that they don't want, that Congress makes them take. There are weapon systems they don't need, that Congress makes them take. All of this is going to now come out in the open.
You owe her a coffee.
I have some salt water.
Salt water for now. You'll get her coffee later. Sabrina Singh, former press secretary over at the Pentagon. Thank you, Mick Mulvaney. See you later in the show.
See you in a bit.
Drink up, bud. All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. Live look at the West Coast, where Southern California is bracing for one of the year's strongest storms. Just a month after that area dealt with devastating wildfires. We speak with one lawmaker on the other side of the break about whether or not they are getting enough help from FEMA. And did you hear what President Trump said today about that agency and its future? And a live look at Capitol Hill, the other major story in this town. I bet you haven't heard a lot about it. It's the House versus the Senate, Republican versus Republican. Can Republicans come together? Mick's shaking his head no. We're going to ask one on the other side. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation.
9 Eastern, only on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to newsnationnow.com.
Ms. Fernandez, what are those tiny things?
Those are called amoebas. You can only see them through a microscope.
Wow. Today's students are tomorrow's great thinkers and innovators. But right now, there's a funding crisis in public schools. Donors Choose is a nonprofit that lets you support students and teachers in your community and beyond. You could provide pencils and paper, help a music class get a guitar,
or even a science project for a classroom like mine.
Learn more at DonorsChoose.org.
You're listening to The Hill on News Nation. To find News Nation on your screen, go to joinnn.com.
When the game is on the line, championship teams know the game plan. They communicate and work together to win. We all need a game plan to protect ourselves online. Talk to family and friends so they know how to stay safe too. Create strong passwords, turn on multi-factor authentication, update software, and recognize and report phishing, because online safety is not something you want to fumble. Get more game-winning tips at CISA.gov/secure our world. Then share them with family and friends.
Sometimes as dads, I think we're too hard on ourselves. We get down on ourselves on not being able to, we're the providers, but we also have to learn to take care of ourselves. Arapaho way, you got to pray for yourself as well as for everybody else, but never forget yourself. Self-love made me a better dad because I realized my worth.
Never stop being a dad. That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
As a busy mom to 4 kids, my to-do list is full.
Trying to fit in exercise, eating right, and prioritizing self-care can feel next to impossible.
While we can't add more hours to the day, we do have a great resource to help.
Go Red for Women has easy tips, tools, and information to help you and your family live a healthier life.
So to all the moms, the aunts, grandmothers, and amazing women out there doing it all,
visit goredforwomen.org/momlife today.
You take care of them, Go Red for Women will take care of you.
Every day, women like me go to the doctor for annual checkups for conditions like breast cancer. Early detection saved my life. But women with disabilities face a cruel reality: inaccessible medical facilities and equipment.
I went to a doctor's office I was told was accessible, but when I got there, I couldn't get through the front door.
Our veterans deserve better. Help PVA fight for access at PVA.org.
Welcome back here to The Hill on News Nation. President Trump moves to reduce the federal workforce. The New York City Mayor, Eric Adams, breaks his silence, and Google Maps makes it official. Our Hannah Brandt is here with what's happening on The Hill. Hello, Hannah.
Hi, Blake. Another day, another executive order, this time focusing on Doge. Today in the Oval Office, Elon Musk and his son standing with President Trump as he announced a new order directing federal agencies to work with Doge to reduce the size of their workforce. Meanwhile, up in the Big Apple, New York City Mayor Eric Adams took a victory lap after the Department of Justice dropped the corruption charges against him. This after Adams met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago last month.
As I said from the outset, I never broke the law, and I never would.
And out with the old, in with the new. Google just granted Trump his wish to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. The new name appearing for the first time ever on Google Maps. But Google says that the new name will only appear for U.S. users. People in Mexico will still see Gulf of Mexico. Everyone else will see both names. And that's what's happening on the Hill, Blake.
What do you mean everyone else will see both names?
Yeah, right.
What does that mean?
It's got to be a little confusing for anyone in any other country, right?
I just went to my phone because I was like, oh, yeah, not that I'm going to doubt Hannah, of course. But there it is, Gulf of Mexico, kind of wild to see. Here's the thing. Executive orders, right, are famously one party comes in, they write a bunch of executive orders and throw out the executive orders from the previous party.
Yes.
I don't think anyone's going to overturn that, right? Like, would a president ever say, no, we're going to name it the Gulf of Mexico again? No.
And you got to wonder, I mean, how consequential is it? How much attention will it be paid by the next president, or will we all just be used to it in 4 years?
Yeah, we'll see. Hannah Brandt, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, so live look right now. Capitol Hill, the snow descending on D.C., and there is a political storm, I guess you could say, brewing as well among Republicans on how to carry out President Trump's agenda. As The Hill reports, the House Budget Committee Chair, Congressman Jody Arrington, is floating a framework to advance the president's plans. But there still isn't consensus. For example, Republicans are debating how much to cut spending and how big the president's tax cuts should be.
I support all of the tax cuts, however, you got to get religion on spending cuts. And if they're not going to do that, I'm not going to be a cheap date and say, oh, okay, sure, you get your tax cuts.
All right. Both the House and Senate, both led by Republicans, as you know, are trying to take the lead. Senator Lindsey Graham offering another warning.
If the Republican Party cannot provide the money to the Trump administration to do all the things they need to do to make us safe, we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
Joining me now, live here on the Hill, the congressman from the state of Indiana, Marlin Stutzman. He is a member of the Budget and Financial Services Committee. Congressman, thanks for being with us tonight here on the Hill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Blake. Great to be with you this evening.
So what's going on, Congressman? I remember back in 2017, Republicans said, we're going to repeal and replace Obamacare. They didn't, right? You ended up getting taxes. You didn't end up getting that. And now it almost seems like the start of 2017 might be playing out again here in 2025. What reassurances, if any, can you give your constituents that you're going to figure this out?
Yeah, well, you know what? I just came from the Speaker's office with a meeting with the freshman members, and I've been in budget meetings and, of course, our conference. This is just a process that Speaker Johnson is leading the way on, and that he's listening to all four corners of our conference. I was here from 2010 to 2017, and it wasn't necessarily like that back then. And also, the big difference, too, is that this time we've got President Trump, who's coming in, and he knows what Washington's like, and he knows that things have got to be done and done quickly. We're going to be there. It's going to happen, and I believe
How long is it going to take?
We're scheduled for a markup on Thursday with Jody Arrington in the Budget Committee, and we're putting all these pieces together. One of the things that I think is important that's happening is that everybody has a voice at the table, and that everybody's getting a chance to share what they want to see as a priority for them or their district. But at the end of the day, Speaker Johnson is listening. This is all coming together, and I believe that we'll get this passed out of committee on Thursday evening.
When you look at the way forward here, there's a warning we've seen it from administration officials. The Hill is reporting tonight, basically telling Senate Republicans, look, we need the border money. We need it now, $175 billion on the border. And then when it comes to tax cuts, $1.5 trillion in cuts, $4.5 trillion in tax cuts. Congressman, how does your party make the argument right now that you're the party for fiscal responsibility when I look at a $36 trillion debt and growing, and right. It seems like it's only going to get bigger the next 4 years?
Well, one of the things that has been needed to be done for a long time in Washington, D.C., and Elon Musk and the Doge team are doing this. The federal government has needed a colonoscopy, frankly. And, whether this is forensic accounting that has taken place by Elon and the Doge team, and this is going to start pointing the way. And I think it's going to also start creating this momentum that while we instinctively always knew that there was a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, I think that there's going to be even more. And so, again,
But you don't think that's going to close the gap,
House,
right?
No. I mean, this is going to take, it's going to take some big pieces to start closing that gap. And, one of the things that I've said, too, and, I'm a small business owner, an entrepreneur, and I know that, when you're working with your banking teams, that, their pro forma is looking for a 3 to 5 year window, going forward. So I think even if it has to be a 5-year extension on the tax rates, that's suitable. One of the other problems that we have, Blake, is the CBO scores these things, and only in Washington does it make any sense. It doesn't make sense outside of Washington to all of us who are used to the real world, where CBO scores tax cuts as an expense to the government. But we know the economy is going to grow, and there's a lot to be optimistic about. That's going to help close that gap, but we still have to get those cuts to start making sure that we control this outsized, bloated government.
Congressman, you talk about a 5-year window. Isn't that rolling back some of what the president wants? Because normally you can take these out 10 years.
Well, we all want that. We all want to make these tax rates permanent. But again, because the Congressional Budget Office scores those tax cuts as an expense to the government, it just manipulates and convolutes the entire process. So we're working with these two different pieces that don't always make sense, but we know it's going to grow the economy, and there's a lot to be optimistic about with a Trump economy, that the economy is going to grow and help fill that gap.
Got to leave it there. Congressman Marlin Stutzman is a Republican from the state of Indiana, congressman who just left the Speaker's office with us live here on the Hill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Blake.
You got it. All right. From one coast to the other now. You see where we are in Washington. A live look, though, at the sunny skies in L.A. It looks beautiful out there in California. It's been roughly a month since the wildfires devastated the Golden State, and as residents try to pick up the pieces, they are now preparing for major rainfall with worries of landslides. In the White House today, the president had his attention on slimming down the federal government. At one point, he posted that FEMA should be terminated. And inside the Oval Office, he signed an executive order mandating federal agencies work with Doge, and did so alongside Elon Musk.
These things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical. I think it's really just saying, let's look at each of the expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it.
Joining me now is the Democratic Congresswoman from the state of California, Judy Chu. She represents the Altadena area, which was largely affected by those wildfires. Congresswoman Chu, thanks for being back with us tonight. Always nice speaking with you.
Thanks for having me.
So the last time we spoke, Congresswoman, it was like a week or so after the fires. They were still very much happening in your hometown, and you told me that your residents were having frustrations with FEMA. Some of them couldn't get through on the portal, were getting denied. President Trump is talking about FEMA being terminated. One of your colleagues on the Democratic side of the aisle, Congressman Moskowitz, says it should be reporting into the White House and get out of the Department of Homeland Security. Where are you right now on what needs to happen with FEMA, given what you've witnessed in your hometown over the last month?
Well, I have to say that FEMA came to our area immediately, and they immediately started reaching out to the disaster survivors. They set up the Disaster Recovery Center. Now, I did raise the issue of our frustrations with the denials that they were issuing. And actually, what they told us is that these denials were not denials. They were denials based on not having enough information, and that the survivors still needed to continue talking to FEMA. And so we said, you have to change the letter that is given to the survivors and make it so that it is a pending issue and not that it's a denial. Now, I have to give them a lot of credit because they did change it. They changed the letter, and now it's much clearer to the survivors to where they are in the process.
So where do you think the agency goes from here? Again, because the president is talking about possibly terminating it. You've had Democrats say we need some reform. Where are you? You've had a first row seat to this over the last month.
I think that would be a huge mistake. They certainly have been very responsive to our survivors in this area, and they have dispensed millions of dollars to thousands upon thousands of survivors. They work over 12 hours a day just serving them day in, day out, and their immediate response is what's really necessary, especially in a disaster of this size.
There's a question in your hometown right now about the convention center there, with whether or not it should be expanded. With the Olympics coming around the corner and how much time, money, and effort should be placed on focusing on the Olympics there in 2028. Rick Caruso, who lost his mayoral race to Karen Bass, said it is unconscionable that the city is now saying they have to delay critical construction for the Olympics. What's the balance here, Congresswoman?
Well, I am totally focused on making sure that our survivors are on the road to recovery and that they rebuild. Now, I do have to say that not all the areas that are involved with the Olympics are in disaster areas. So I think we need to have a discussion, and there have to be plans that are put together on how we can ensure the recovery of our survivors in the Eaton fire and in the Palisades fire and have an assessment as to which buildings need to be ready for the Olympics.
Wow.
I don't have an assessment of that, so that assessment must be done.
Congresswoman Judy Chu represents the Altadena area with us once again live here on the Hill. Congresswoman, thank you. Appreciate it. You got it. All right, still to come here on the Hill. Elon Musk in the Oval Office making no apology for Doge. The president sitting there right next to him, and the fate of the president's pick for the Director of National Intelligence delayed. We'll explain why. Full panel, other side. You're watching the Hill.
Bring you the day's events with critical thought from all sides. Analysis that's tough but fair. In search of the truth. The new primetime on NewsNation. Weeknights starting at 7 Eastern.
We're going to be signing a very important deal today. It's Doge, and I'm going to ask Elon to tell you a little bit about it and some of the things that we found, which are shocking. Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected.
President Trump in the Oval Office today, alongside Elon Musk. The president taking executive action to bolster the Department of Government Efficiency as the agency continues to cut down federal costs and reduce the government's workforce. Musk also addressed Doge.
There are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from.
Full panel here with me now. Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff in the first Trump administration, NewsNation contributor. Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill. Michael Schnell is a congressional reporter for The Hill. And Kurt Bardella, NewsNation contributor. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. Whether you love Trump or hate Trump, love Musk or hate him, have mixed feelings. That was quite the statement today from President Trump in the Oval Office, putting Elon Musk there and saying, look, here he is. Ask him whatever you want.
Oh, it's good TV. I mean, the Trump show is always entertaining. That's a separate question from whether you think the actual methods or policies are a good idea. I think we saw an awful lot of assertion and not a lot of substantiation of a lot of these claims. There are all kinds of claims about waste and abuse and very little actual verification of them. If you go to the official Doge website, which Mr. Musk was bigging up during his appearance, it has 6 words on it. The people voted for major reform. I don't know whether that fits his promise of maximal transparency or not.
They do push some of this stuff out on social media, though. And he says that's, some of the transparency there. What do you think the president was trying to do here today?
I mean, I'll note that all of this is not happening within a vacuum, right? There's the Doge or agency organization led by Elon Musk, but we have Doge subcommittees up on Capitol Hill. The first hearing is going to be tomorrow. And we heard from Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who today said that he's certainly going to try to insert language into spending bills to try to undo what Elon Musk is doing, which will almost certainly force a government shutdown debate, which we're headed towards right now. So everything that Elon Musk is saying and doing should be taken note of because of, A, the real practical implications that they have in the federal government, but also because of what's happening in that building behind us on Capitol Hill. Republican lawmakers are taking their cues from Elon, and it's going to have reverberations in Congress.
Is this the fight that your party, Kurt, should be taking up right now? Because it seems like Democrats coming out of the election have taken the tact of, okay, Elon, Doge, go. That's what we're going after.
It's a fight they could be having. They're not fighting it the right way, is what I would say.
What do you mean by that?
Standing behind a federal department of fill in the blank and going, this is closed, this is terrible, you are so out of touch with the American people. Nobody in America cares, frankly, about a building in D.C. being open or closed. Most Americans believe the government is wasteful. It is too big. They are for cutting the federal workforce. They believe their taxpayer dollars are poorly spent. That's the message that voters have sent in every election for the last decade. Every election has been a change election because they believe that this place here fails them every day. So if you are aligned with the federal government and the federal bureaucracy, you are losing.
You wrote an column in The Hill today, what Democrats can learn from the 2009 House Republicans. You know who we name-checked?
No.
Mick Mulvaney. Explain your article.
When Darrell Issa became the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, then leader John Boehner told him, you have one job and one job only. It is to communicate. We are not in the policy-making business anymore because we were deep in the minority. President Obama had shellacked the Republican Party, and we went out of our way in the next 2 elections. We recruited members that could communicate to join this committee. People like Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, Mick Mulvaney when he got elected in 2010. And we became the Communications Committee, and we kicked serious butt. That's what Democrats need to be doing now, and they're not, because the choice between one of their great communicators to lead the Oversight Committee, AOC, and Jerry Connolly, they picked Connolly. That tells you they're not serious about communications at all.
The president in the Oval Office today, I don't remember him ever really ceding ground to someone, Mick, and he gave Elon Musk and his son basically center stage there in the Oval. What's that relationship like right now?
I thought it was a smart move because some of the criticisms of Elon Musk is that he doesn't have any real authority. And there's nothing that speaks of authority more than standing next to the president behind the Resolute desk. So if you're out there in an agency right now going, well, if Elon knocks on the door, maybe I'll send him away, that stopped. So I can't speak to the personal relationship. I think it's still too early to tell. I think they are getting to the point where there's going to be mutually assured destruction. They either rise together or fall together. They can't afford.
So no middle ground, do you think?
They can't afford to be enemies. Trump can't stand it if he's getting beat up on X, and Elon couldn't stand it if the conservatives stopped buying Teslas. So I think they're the point.
Can I just pick up briefly?
Please do, because I can't say anything.
And I'll have to say it in a thick accent, so we'll be stuck one way or another. But look, here's the thing about Mick's point in relation to X. That's the factor that I think binds Trump and Musk together more than any other. If you look at President Trump's life, one of his chief concerns has always been, how am I perceived? And if he falls out with Elon Musk, the proprietor of X, Musk can drive an enormously negative perception his way.
By the way, live look right now, Capitol Hill. There was expected, Michael, to be a vote tonight on Tulsi Gabbard. It's getting pushed to tomorrow because of the snow here.
Oh, sissies. Are you serious?
I believe so. I believe that's the reason why.
They walk to work.
Real quick, she gets through.
Yeah,
that's what we're expecting.
It looks like that's the case. Look, she had had cleared that cloture vote, that procedural vote yesterday with support from all Republicans present. Some people may vote against after voting for cloture. Mitch McConnell, for example, is one of them. But she's expected to have the majority of Republican support and skate through.
All right. Thank y'all. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill. Think about all the names, all the people that we've been talking about, right? Doge, Musk, USAID, you name it, right? I'm going to explain to you 3 words on the other side of the break and why you probably should pay attention to them. It was a story that got buried today. Higher for longer. When we return. Is coming up next here on News Nation. She will be joined live by Mark Fogel's mother, Malphine Fogel. Hear what she has to say just hours after the Kremlin freed her son from prison. That's coming up here in just a couple minutes, 7 o'clock Eastern, right here on News Nation. But before we say goodbye here on the Hill, here's a story that caught my eye. Trump, Musk, Vance, Doge, USAID, you know the names, right? Probably heard them a little bit over the past week or so. But how about this one? The American dream. You might have missed it earlier today, but the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, testified up on Capitol Hill this morning and made it very clear. There are no plans at the moment to lower interest rates, which could impact those who are trying to buy a home.
Once we lower rates and kind of rates return to a lower level, mortgage rates will come down. I don't know when that'll happen. And even when it does happen, we're still going to have a housing shortage in many places.
I don't know when it's going to happen, and even when it does, there's going to be a housing shortage, he says. Now, consider this. Right now, a 30-year mortgage, fixed mortgage in this country, give or take roughly 7%. But at this exact time in President Trump's first term, it was around 4.2%. Interest rates higher for longer is something that we all should probably get used to. And it's something that the Trump administration will have to deal with as well. By the way, tomorrow morning comes a new inflation reading, which will factor into all of it. But think about it here for a second. Donald Trump never had to deal with this in the first term. High inflation, high mortgage rates. Jay Powell basically saying higher for longer. Thanks for watching The Hill here on News Nation. Make sure to set your DVRs. Watch us at 6 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. We will be back here then. By the way, don't forget to catch Chris Cuomo live